Hello, this is Tony Blazer for the Motocross Vault presented by Blinzall. If you're in the market for some high-quality racing oil for your two-stroke or four, make sure you go to blinzall.com and use our discount code VAULT20 to save 20% at checkout. Thank you for all the support. Hello and welcome back to the Motocross Vault. My name is Tony Blazer, and what this video is going to cover is a look back at Kawasaki's Supermini offering for 1996, the KX100. Now, the 100 division, also known as the Supermini division, is kind of an interesting one in that it was actually several machines available in the 70s. They had Yamaha had a YZ100, Suzuki made an RM100, but those early versions were more like downsized 125s. They weren't upsized minis. The official mini class was kind of in its infancy in the 70s. Yamaha had a YZ80, but they had that field all to themselves for many years there. There wasn't a factory-built CR until 1980. I think Kawasaki came out in 79 with the KX80, and maybe a year earlier the RM was 78, I think. So in those early days, there weren't many factory-built minis. So these early 100s were really just downsized 125s. In the early 80s, those machines kind of went away for some reason. I don't know whether they didn't sell a lot of them. Maybe there weren't a lot of classes for the quote-unquote 100s at the time. For whatever reason, they kind of went out of style. So for a couple of years there wasn't really anything in that niche. Then in 1987, Kawasaki came back with the first of the quote-unquote big-wheeled KX80s. And they really had that market to themselves for like another decade until Honda finally came out with one to compete with them in the mid-90s. These early KXs, again, they're larger minis. And this KX100 in 1996 is really the same thing. It's just an oversized KX80. It's not a downsized KX125. History has proven these machines have been very popular. I know they were available overseas in other markets. I believe in Europe they had what they called a schoolboy class in the 80s where you could actually get a large-wheeled CR80 and some of the other competitors. But here in the US, we really just didn't have that. And I'm not sure why. I was never lucky enough to ride minis. My parents didn't like motorcycles, so I didn't get a bike, a real motocross bike, until I got myself a CR250. So I actually never had one of these mini class machines. I always wanted them. I remember thinking how cool they were, but it was just out of my reach when I was a kid. If you like this sort of thing, check out some of the other videos I've done. I did a history of the complete Honda CR80 if you're into mini class bikes. I'm going to be doing one on the some RMs going forward. Some other stuff you can find some other retrospectives on the channel. If you want to support what I do, I have Motocross Vault merchandise available. Just came out with a new Ronnie Tishner design. I just did a 1985 Kawasaki Jeff Ward design. Always working on some other stuff. I think I'm going to be doing maybe a history of Yamaha next, like an evolution of the YZs over the years. So I love doing this stuff. I love being creative. It's a lot of fun. And if you want to support what I do, you can find the link in the description below. So here's the story of the 1996 Kawasaki KX100. If there is one word that can sum up motocross in the early to mid-90s, that word would have to be purple. The color of royalty for centuries, this combination of red and blue hues made its way to all facets of the sport during the reign of 90210 and Beavis and Butthead. Gear, graphics, casual wear, and motorcycle bodywork were all dipped in this regal shade for a short time before that fad was over as swiftly as it had begun. For Kawasaki, this purple craze reached its zenith with the introduction of the 1996 KX lineup. All the machines were only mildly refreshed for 1996, but they certainly looked new with their grape-flavored bodywork and bold, Barney graphics. Some people loved the new look, and others just scratched their heads, but there was no mistaking their unique appearance. In the case of the KX100, this new look was certainly the most dramatic change that Kawasaki had on tap for 1996. A new model in 1995, the KX100 had developed as a natural progression of Kawasaki's big wheel racing program. Originally introduced in 1987, the KX80 big wheel had provided the perfect stepping stone for riders too large for a traditional 80, but not quite big enough for a full-size 125. Featuring larger wheels, a longer wheelbase, and upgraded suspension, the KX80 big wheel filled a void left by the death of the 100 class in the early 1980s. By 1994, the KX80 big wheel had developed into a potent and highly advanced mini racer. Like its big brothers, it featured a stout steel perimeter frame, inverted forks, dual disc brakes, and a powerful liquid-cooled two-stroke motor. With its modest 82cc displacement, and without the benefit of a power valve, its power band remained rather narrow and peaky, but it was certainly competitive in the right hands. For 1995, Kawasaki looked to expand the appeal of their big-wheeled racer by broadening the power of their tweener-sized Mini. To do this, Kawasaki went the tried-and-true muscle car route and bumped up the displacement from 82 to a full 99cc by punching out the bore 4.5mm. At the time, displacements up to 112cc were allowed in the Supermini division, so many KX80 big wheel riders had already gone this route through aftermarket means. By taking care of this at the factory, Kawasaki further cornered the Supermini market by offering a race-ready alternative right off the showroom floor. Compared to a standard KX80, the new KX100 was taller, longer, and heavier overall. The wheels were 2 inches larger front and rear, and the swing arm was extended 1.2 inches. This added up to a 1.2 inch increase in both wheelbase and seat height on the 100. Up front, the 100 featured a 36mm inverted Kawasaki fork that offered increased rigidity over the 38mm conventional travel control valve Kawasaki forks employed on the KX80. Overall travel remained unchanged between the two, with both offering 10.8 inches of movement both front and rear. The combination of a larger motor, beefier suspension, and upgraded chassis components added up to a 7-pound increase in weight for the KX100 over the standard KX80. For 1996, the changes to the KX100 were fairly minimal. Aside from a dramatic new look, the most significant upgrades were a slightly longer silencer, which Kawasaki claimed reduced noise output without sacrificing any power. They also added a KX125 front master cylinder, which came with a sight glass, and hopefully a decrease in the previously mushy performance. They also added a new gas cap, which offered improved venting. Other than these admittedly minor upgrades, the KX100 was basically the exact same machine it had been in 1995. One significant thing that did change in 1996 was the addition of an actual competitor in the Supermini division. After 8 years of having the big wheel class all to themselves, Kawasaki came under fire for the first time with the introduction of Honda's all-new CR80R Expert. Slightly larger in size than the KX100, the CR80R Expert featured a smaller motor, but it had an all-new chassis with more advanced suspension components. Unlike the inverted units found on the KX, the CR's new 37mm Showa upside-down forks featured both adjustments for compression and rebound damping, as well as more sophisticated cartridge internals. On the track, the additional 17cc paid major dividends in the rideability of the KX100. Compared to the standard KX80, the 100 picked up sooner and pulled stronger through the mid-range. On top, it was actually a little bit less powerful than the KX80, but the trade-off for that slight decrease in top-end power was a much more manageable power delivery. Off the line and out of corners, the 100 required less clutch abuse and was far easier to keep on the pipe between gears. Compared to the CR80 Expert, the KX100 offered a serious torque and rideability advantage, but it had significantly less top-end power. For experts with the skill to keep it on the pipe, the CR offered blistering performance, but it was much harder to ride and trickier to keep from bogging between gears. For most riders, the broad and smooth power offered by the KX100 was superior to the potent but very pipey Honda. On the suspension end of things, Kawasaki's 36mm inverted Kawasaki forks looked very similar to what was offered on the KX125, but it did suffer from several cost-cutting measures. Externally, the outer tubes were fashioned out of steel instead of lightweight aluminum, and internally, they featured an old-school damper rod damping system instead of the more sophisticated cartridge units found in the Honda. Out back, the KX did use a much more up-to-date, fully adjustable Kawasaki shock, which offered 4 settings for rebound and 16 adjustments for compression damping. In terms of performance, the KX100 suspension was actually considered excellent for its target market. For really fast guys and kids above 120 pounds, the forks and shock were a bit soft, but most mini pilots of the average size and speed the KX was designed for loved its smooth action. Some fast kids also complained about some kicking from the shock when charging through the whoops, but most kids of lesser skill did not even notice this trait. Interestingly, the more advanced components on the Honda were actually rated below the old-fashioned units found on the Kawasaki in 1996. The CR80R's forks were knocked for their slightly harsh action on choppy terrain, and overall, they lacked plushness compared to the Kawasaki. The shock was also dinged for its underdamped action and propensity to hang down in the stroke. This made the bike unbalanced and hindered its handling overall. In spite of being older and less sophisticated, the Kawasaki's more careful setup gave it the superior suspension package out of the crate. On the handling front, the KX100 was a real shredder in 1996. With its flat layout, well-behaved suspension and stout chassis, the KX was the king of the inside line. On tight tracks, the KX could cut under, over, and around most all other minis on the track. At high speed, though, it did become a bit of a handful. The headshake was not of the terrifying variety, but it did twitch far more than most 10-year-olds would have probably liked. Compared to the unbalanced and pipey Honda, the KX was far less exciting, but also far easier to go fast on. In 1996, the Supermini division finally got some serious competition, and the old veteran of the class took the rookie on and came out on top. Broad, smooth, and more polished, the KX100 was not as blisteringly fast as the new CR80R Expert, but it was far more race-ready out of the crate. Unless you were Ricky Carmichael or James Stewart, It offered more than enough performance out of the box. For a generation of kids who have grown up on green, it was the perfect stepping stone to the big leagues. So there you have it. That's the story of the 1996 Kawasaki KX100, a mini-cycle machine that I certainly would have loved to have back in the day, but never was afforded myself. I know a lot of people love these mid-90s Kawasaki's. I remember when that thing came out in that purple, I was like, what in the Sam hell is Kawasaki doing? I was just thunderstruck by how goofy I thought it looked. Now I think it's pretty cool. Man, the purple in the 90s was just strange. It was a weird time for motocross. I love it, but I still was like, what the hell's going on? The 80s and the 100s are always interesting. It's funny because Honda never did up the displacement on their CR80, the 85. It stayed at 85. RM had, I think, the RM85L, they called it. And I don't even know if Yamaha ever came out with a big wheel version. It's funny that I guess maybe there wasn't enough market to have them all do it. It's like one would do it, and like kind of like the KX60, they just ceded the market to everybody else. They figured, if you want this machine, you're going to buy the Kawasaki 100. There wasn't going to be a CR100. I don't know why. I always thought that was kind of peculiar. It's interesting. The minis, I love the fact that they're still on two-strokes today, but it's kind of a strange market. And I guess KTM is probably the highest performing machine you can buy now. I always thought it was cool. They look just like unlike some of the mini class from the Japanese, like a mini class, an 85 KTM looks just like a full-size machine. It's really cool. They've done that. And I think actually the Japanese would have done better to at least look more like the regular machines. But in any case, again, if you like the sort of thing, make sure you subscribe, ding the little bell so you get notified when we do new ones. And if you could share it on social media and let your friends know about the channel, I would very much appreciate it. If you'd like to support the channel, I have merch available in the Teespring store. And again, you'll be able to find that link in the description below. So until we meet again, this is Tony Blazer from Motocross Vault. Keep the rubber side down. Peace.